Okay, so I'll start the second part of chapter 10. So Freddie and Jesse went for a walk or a run or a hike. So they saw something like a shrine for Hopi Indians. Okay. My father, he's dead, Freddie said. He always said we should visit here one day. He felt sorry that his work took us away from my mother's people. He was a Basque from Spain. What did he do? How did he get to America? He was a sheep herder, the best. Freddie chuckled a little. Then he said, they can't get anybody to stay with the sheep over there. So the people who own the big flocks bring over Basques to do it. Freddie looked at me for a second, wondering if he should go on, and then he did. That high country above Al's camp in Colorado, that's right where we used to take our sheep. That's where we always lived in the summers. When we were at our base camp, you were always taking off by yourself. Was that where you were going? Oh, there's a little lake up there just above timberline. We'd move the sheep around, but that was always our favorite camp. We lived in a big sheep herder tent, me and my mother and father, and we always had horses and dogs. In the winters, we went down into the New Mexico with the sheep. You were really close to your father? Freddie nodded. In the quiet spell that followed, he looked so sad and so alone. Finally, he looked at me almost hopefully and said, 4 years ago, he was killed by the police. It was all a big misunderstanding. He thought they were coming to take me away. There'd been talk about taking me to a boarding school. He picked up his rifle when they came. The police thought he was going to shoot. I'm so sorry, I said. I'm really sorry. A raven came in with thrashing wings and landed nearby. Freddie glanced at me as if recognizing for the first time who he was talking to, and he got up. He seemed embarrassed, and he told me all this. He said, we better get back. Freddie, I couldn't help but asking, how come you don't live with your mother? He hesitated, then began to speak again. I tried. We went back to Second Misa and lived with her family. But you can't become a Hopi. You have to be born one, raised one. I got into a lot of trouble. We left the Sipapuni, or the shrine, and started back down the Grand Canyon, or the canyon. The sun was high up on the walls, and it was getting late. Even so, we didn't run or even hustle. We walked very deliberately, Freddie in front and me behind. We didn't talk. I felt close to him there at the shrine, but every step back toward the others, I felt the distance growing. Until it was almost as great as before. My thoughts were jumbled with conflicting emotions. I was thinking about Freddie going back to that lake to remember his dad. I was thinking about me and my dad, even about me and Freddie. Back at camp, everything felt different. It wasn't just that the others were still cavorting like others. The whole mood had swung to the downside since we'd left them. I picked it up first of Rita and Pug. The cold wave was easy to notice. What's the matter? I asked Rita. Did something happen here? Nothing happened here. We've been sitting around for hours, that's all. We could have been back on the river and found a decent camp. Now we'll have to camp here on these ledges. Wait a minute, I said. Don't I remember Pug saying no more miles and Troy saying we'd camp here? We changed our mind, Pug explained. We wanted to get back on the river, but you weren't around. Finally, we had to give up and stay here. I looked for Troy. He was lying back on the boatman's seat on the gearboat. I'm sorry we got our signals crossed, I told him. I thought we were camping here. No big deal, he said unconvincingly. His blue eyes weren't so warm. I never thought you two would be gone so long. That's all. My mistake. He seemed so disappointed in me. I could see now. It probably hadn't taken that long before they played themselves out on the other side. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to create problems. Just think of the group, Jessie. That's what I tried to do. I returned to my tent and was happy to find Star inside. I asked her if she knew why the winds had changed. It's Troy, she said. He's the magician, a man of influence. The good for ill, I asked the cards. Magician? Man of influence? You ask a question about Troy and that's really what it said? How come you were asking about him? I've been thinking about him. He's not in a very good mood, I said. I wonder what his problem is. You and Freddie, maybe? Just taking a hike? Oh, I think it's great. I really like Freddie. I hate this. Things get so complicated. Let's make dinner. Maybe that'll perk up everybody up. As we were quietly preparing dinner, Adam came in with a plastic soap case and ceremoniously opened it up in the kitchen table for our inspection. Out crawled a yellowish scorpion about 2 inches long and ready to do battle. With its stinger held high, Adam teased it with a straw. Check out the claws! He's like a little lobster. Everyone else came around to see what the stir was all about, and watched Adam's finger-length straw fence with the scorpion among the onions I was dicing at the time. The chancy part was the scorpion's direction of travel was totally unpredictable. Watch this! Our ninja is about to get stung. It was interesting watching everybody's reaction. It was good theater for everyone but Star. Don't say that, she told Rita. They'll make it happen. Adam, let me kill it for you, Pug said. Let's roast him in the flame. Hey, no way, big guy. I'm keeping him alive. Adam proceeded to recapture the scorpion in his blue soap case. He snapped the lid shut and tucked the case into the back pocket of his jeans. Old Japanese saying, Adam said. Live scorpions in pants make life interesting. Troy said, don't sit down, old buddy. In the morning, I was back on Troy's boat, and it was easy to see where we weren't the same as before. I tried to work on it with forced cheerfulness, but he was in a foul mood. It wasn't hard to figure out that he was teaching me a lesson. The current picked up, and Troy worked the oars in lively water. He could pretend I wasn't there. Over the other boat, they were enjoying themselves, and I was feeling like the captain's captive. We left the confines of the narrow canyon we'd been in since we started, and entered a new realm. Finally, it looked like the Grand Canyon I'd seen in pictures. Maybe like this. Suddenly, we could see miles and miles ahead and all the way up through the layers and layers of formation to what had to be the very rim of the distance. I wish I felt happier about it, but I was preoccupied. Should I wait him out, try to reason with him, beg for forgiveness, or tell him to get off and get on the other boat? Maybe. I heard my dad saying how I tend to see everything in extremes. Everything is either wonderful or it's blown. Slow down, I told myself. Give it some time. Maybe Troy's just having a bad day. After all, we have been together constantly for quite a while now. This is bound to happen. Before long, we noticed a little knob on the rim with a distinctly unnatural look to it. 4 miles we floated in that direction. In between rapids, we kept looking up to that rim as the knob gradually assumed the lines of a tall stone tower. Hey, Pug yelled, filled with sudden inspiration. There's probably tourists up in that tower checking us out with telescopes. Let's moon him. When nobody signed up, Pug declined to take on the job by himself. No guts, no glory, he grumbled. In the late afternoon, we lost sight of the tower. We figured we must be pretty close to it and about 5,000 feet below. After a roller coaster ride that lasted for miles, the current almost died out, and Troy had to turn his back downstream and pull out the oars through the nearly dead water. We turned a corner, and the river thunder turned up, the loudest yet. This has to be a big one, Troy shouted back to the others. We better scout it. We made a beach on the left, just short of a brink of the rapid. The thunder overwhelmed me and made me feel sick in the pit of my stomach and lightheaded at the same time. Star and I were trying the bow lines to the bushy trees, and we could see we were both scared. We knew this one would be the worst yet. What is it, a waterfall? Star joked weakly. We joined the others for the scout as we all stumbled down the left for a look. The rapid was strewn with boulders from one side of the river to the other. The white water continued as far as we could see through the maze of rocks and holes, a real mess. It was a dramatic spot with the roar of the rapid and a new formation of stone walls breaking out the riverbed at a steep angle and heading skyward into a dark gorge. I felt sicker than ever, Finding a route down through the first drop was going to be hard enough, and then we'd have to make a series of moves more difficult than what we have done yet to make it through the obstacle course below. Freddie and Troy were on the highest boulder, tracing a possible route, when Rita yelled and pointed to a guy with a pack on his back coming toward us. He was leaping from a boulder to boulder, really moving. It was Al, and his marine fatigues. Dressed for battle, I thought. Nobody said a thing. Oh my goodness. It was all scrambled over, jumped to a boulder right by us, and gave us a big smile. A classic mix of amusement and anger. Al, our ex-leader in the flesh. May I offer my services? He said. Oh, this is going to be interesting for the next chapter. Remember, they sneak out of Al, and now Al found them. Okay.